Hello everyone, Zadok Squared here and welcome to Clan Krug. So after the brief hiatus, I finally have some time to sit down and record a video, and I decided that I'd make a build that's not only going to help you guys play the game, but it's also going to help prepare me for something that I need to do in the few weeks that we have left in this season, which is make a build that is going to be viable not only in group activities like GMs or raids, but also in solo content, since I still need to run the solo dungeon, Spire of the Watcher, for Guardian rank 11. This build specifically is going to be a Loreley Splendor Solar Titan build. A nerf to sunspots decrease the amount of restoration you get, a nerf to restoration has nerfed how much healing you get from restoration, and a nerf to barricades has decreased the amount of uptime that the build has. Yet through all of that, it still remains ever strong as it's able to help heal you in endgame content where healing is not necessarily easy to come by, and it helps keep you alive through some really difficult activities. With this build, I'm running Rally Barricade to help the uptime. For aspects, I'm running Roaring Flames and Soul Invictus, which are just both really good aspects for the Solar Titan. And for fragments, I'm running Ember of Singeing, Ember of Ashes, Ember of Resolve, and Ember of Torches. Altogether, this is going to help us run around, play in general activities, and then whenever we get hurt, we're going to automatically drop a sunspot using our barricade energy, and the rest of the build is there to help basically just get our barricade back as quickly as possible. This is also helped by different mods like Insulation and Utility Kickstart. To play this build, I basically just play as I normally would, shooting enemies from afar, pushing in if I need to, and then if I'm in a bad spot and I take a lot of damage, a sunspot will pop up using my barricade energy, healing me right back up. This is usually enough to get me out of danger and let me back up. I can also prematurely use my barricade, popping that sunspot early, which is going to let me push in on enemies that I know are going to take me down low, so I heal up before they even kill me, keeping strong, which is very useful if I'm pushing in for ammo or trying to get an ally res. This build does great in activities like GMs, or solo dungeons, or just in group dungeons. It's not necessarily the strongest against bosses. It doesn't really have anything that's going to enable it to function well against bosses. However, if you are playing an activity where you don't have something like a Well Warlock or a Bubble Titan, it can be incredibly useful to help keep specifically just you alive. It's not going to help your allies stay alive, but it will help you. This makes it incredibly strong in activities like solo content, either a solo dungeon or solo GM, anything that you're running by yourself, where you think you might die. You're not going to necessarily be getting more damage from it, but it's going to be giving you so much survivability that it makes up for it. You also get a ton of ad control from it. Not only can you run hammer melee to clear out lots of enemies and create sunspots that way, but you can also just use something like a fusion nade to kill enemies that way. That's what I'm doing in this build. I am running shoulder charge for the mobility since it's incredibly useful in an activity like a GM, but you can run hammer instead. And if you're doing that, I might suggest that you run something like the heal grenade instead of a fusion nade like I'm running. I am using the new fragment that makes your grenades cure you, which is a little bit of a middle ground between using a healing nade and using the fusion grenade. It's going to take up a fragment slot, sure, but it's going to also enable you to keep much healthier when using your grenade. Using your grenade's also going to create sunspots, which Loreley doesn't buff, but having more sunspots can never hurt as it's going to give you more points to be able to stand in to heal up. You can also pop your super at any point in time, which is also incredibly good at clearing out large groups of adds, and is also good at dealing a significant amount of damage to a boss, given it is over a large period of time, so it's not going to be great for DPS in something like a raid, but it is really good for something like a strike, some form of GM or a dungeon, where you have a lot more time to worry about killing the boss. You're not going to have a wipe mechanic, but you do have to worry about that survivability if you're in some of these harder activities, and having a super that's going to keep you alive while being able to do a lot of damage to the boss on a subclass that's really good at keeping you alive is going to be much more useful than something like Thunder Crash might be, where you're on a very squishy kit for the rest of it. And that's basically it. As long as you're using the sunspots to help keep you alive and keep safe, playing back when you need to, pushing in when you need to, and using that sunspot to be able to keep you alive or give you a little panic button if you are getting low on health, is a great way to play most GMs or solo dungeons on what is essentially easy mode. You might have a few issues in some of these activities. It is still possible for large groups of adds or high damage bosses or champs to be able to kill you through your sunspot or before your Loreley sunspot even procs. However, for the most part, you are able to keep alive, especially if it's just 1 or 2 adds hitting you. And even if a boss is hitting you, there have been plenty of times where I've lived the damage, especially if you're running 10 resilience, and then you heal back up afterwards, giving you the opportunity to run back behind cover, heal back up to full, before pushing out again. This is one of my favorite builds and something that I've used consistently ever since Loreley has released. However, it is a lot weaker than it used to be. But I did want to make this video just to show that this build is still incredibly viable, even with these nerfs. I think a lot of people have kind of slept on this exotic over the past few seasons because of these nerfs, myself included. But it's still functioning more than well enough to run it in even hard activities like GMs or solo dungeons. Anyway, that's it for the build. Thank you all for watching. If you have any questions about this build or any suggestions for future builds or videos, please let me know down in the comments below. Until next time, I've been Zadok Squared. See ya, everyone.